Steve here with Table Rock Tea Company. This is going to be a fairly long video, but stick with me to the end. This is a comprehensive 1,000-mile review on my 2023 Honda Trail 125 or CT125 or Hunter Cub 125, whatever you want to call it. So I bought this thing brand new back in, or I guess early 2023, and this is now the 2024 1,000-mile review. And so we're going to be very honest here. Some of you have seen my older videos when I first got the bike, and really what we're going to talk about is some of the modifications that I've done, what I like, what I don't like, and who is this bike for. We'll save that till the end, whether or not this bike is for you. There's a lot of talk about this bike, but there's also a lot of these for sale within 1,000 miles, and there's a reason for that. We'll talk about it in just a second. So we'll kind of cover from the front to the back of the bike. I'll even talk about what I carry with me in my my box over here for different rides and for different reasons. And again, on the accessories, I will tell you why I chose some things and why I didn't choose some things that are pretty popular modifications and accessories. I do want to say a quick caveat that for some of these, I was sponsored for a little while by Kemomoto, as far as they would send me some things for product review, and I'll give a very honest assessment of those as well. I will say this before I get too deep in the weeds, that all of the Kemomoto products that I have and that I've done reviews on are really high quality as far as their manufacture. Then it just comes down to, is that an accessory that you would really want to use on your bike? So anyhow, let's start. So first of all, what is this thing? This is 125 cc's. It is pretty small. I can't remember. I think the gas tank holds about 1.2 gallons, something like that. But it's a great little bike. It will pretty much go anywhere. This does have an automatic clutch, so there's no gear shifting with your hand, so one hand is free. And it's it's been a great little bike. But again, you kind of have to know what you need and what you're looking for. So let's go through the modifications that I have first on this bike. Starting with the front. If you come over here, this unfortunately you won't be able to get. This is a prototype Kemomoto windshield. Okay, there are windshield makers for this. You can see the little Kemomoto logo on there. Kemomoto asked me to test this out for them before they put the real one into production. I absolutely love having a windshield. I will tell you that yes, it actually does give you about 1 to 2 miles per hour increased speed. But the other thing is, it's just nice, like stuff, the wind just doesn't go right in your face. It's pretty cool. I did tell Kemomoto on this one, I wanted to have all dimensions increased by 50%. So we'll see if they did that, and also have a little bit more of a slant. But like I said, there are different windshields on the market, and I would say that definitely it's a good investment to do. So that's the first thing on the front. This right here, I will have to say, is an absolute necessity for me. These are little extensions, and again, I will put links in the description to all of these where you can buy the stuff, okay? But these, don't ask me why Honda does this, but their windshields, I'm sorry, their rear view mirrors are really short. And so I guess that's fine if you're kind of small shoulder wise, but I have wide shoulders, and without these 2-inch extensions, it's just 2 inches, but man, what a difference it makes. Because yeah, it's literally the difference from being able to see behind you and not. And so before I would just look into my shoulder, totally worthless. So these extensions, I wish Honda just made these longer. That's all they would have had to do. But the extensions are definitely, I would say, a must modification for safety. As you come around here, the other modification that I think is essential, at least for me, is this right here. It's a Type C and USB charger, and this is for basically running your phone. So I have an iPhone on my bike that I use, and I'll show you the mount that I have for that in just a second. But having the charger is really important. Now, there are a few types of chargers on the market. And again, I will put a link to this one because this one in particular does not hook into the battery. I would highly recommend not doing that. Like I said, there's about 50% of what you see, they will tap into the battery. And, you know, if you're like me, where you're just an occasional rider, that kind of thing, you'll end up draining your battery potentially, especially if it wasn't hooked up right or if there's some short or something like that. This one hooks into the headlight harness, and there are tons of videos on how to do it. It's actually really simple. There's just, I think, a couple of screws that this thing comes off, and it basically just mounts right into there. So this is literally a plug and play kind of device, and I think it's super important. I am terrible with directions. I use this bike for exploring, so we just kind of go out on the back roads, and I kind of take every little squirrel path that's possible, and then I usually have to say, "Hey, SIRI, take me home," you know. So not very cool if your phone runs out of charge. So that's that. So continuing at the front of the bike, then I have this stabilizer bar. Don't know if it's necessary. This was actually a little bit of a pain to install, but this bar that runs along here, main reason I did it, obviously it's to stabilize the wishbone handlebars, you know, to keep the vibration, because that, obviously that's how you can break metals if you're doing a lot of bumpy roads. So it does definitely stabilize the handlebars, but I mostly got it because I needed somewhere to mount my phone, basically. This, again, putting the map on for GPS and that kind of thing. So very happy with this. This is a Lamicall phone holder, and the phone basically slips in there and then just clamps, and it's really nice. It's an easy thing to do. When you ride, it doesn't matter what phone holder you have, they're all going to shake, okay? So I like to mount my phone holder so that it's sitting on top versus like this, you know, so that the thing doesn't potentially rattle out. There have been several times where I've forgotten to lock it in place. My wife is nodding her head because she has done the same thing. So that's that. For the grips, then, I did change out the grips. Now, this modification I got, I wanted tan grips, but the reality is I wanted to change out the grips because the stock grips on these are very uncomfortable in my opinion. They so if anybody wants a pair of stock grips, I got them for sale. I'll make a cheap offer, but they're very rigid. They've got kind of these like little, I don't know, little lines and sort of grading in them. And I don't ride with gloves most of the time unless it's winter. So barehanded, those grips are awful in my opinion. That comes stock. Grips are really cheap, but man, are they a pain in the butt to replace. It's so tight. You'll be frustrated doing it. You'll be happy when it's done. Just be aware, not fun. And again, there are videos on how to replace the grips. I went with tan because I wanted it to kind of, that tan and green kind of combination. Pretty cool. Now, I will say this before I get too far along also, that, you know, we are now in 2024. There is a 2024 model, but really it's exactly the same as the 2023. I don't think there's any mechanical differences. It's just a difference in the color scheme. So turmeric yellow is what they have. I really wanted this military green one, the 2023. And I would still say, if I were in the market, that I would probably still go with a 2023 in the green, because this gets a whole lot more respect on the road. These bikes, no matter, I know this is going to offend some people, but there is that group of folks that still look at these as kind of a scooter sort of shape. And when it's this military green, nobody thinks that. Everybody has pretty much thought that it was, oh, is that an old military bike? Oh, that's so cool. And it doesn't matter if they're Harley riders or if they're just people that hate motorcycles, and, you know, or the people that are aficionados. most of the thing about this bike, hey Jazzy, is that you will get a lot of, just be prepared to answer a lot of questions, because a lot of people love this bike. This design has been around since the 60s. For a lot of riders, this was probably like their first machine that they ever had. So it brings back a lot of nostalgia. So kind of doesn't matter where I go, and whether they're motorcycle people or not motorcycle people, I answer a lot of questions about this bike. So, all right. So then the other modifications that I've got, this I bought totally for aesthetics. It is just like a kind of like a guardrail or an engine guard kind of thing. I just thought they were cool, and I was already getting a big package from Thailand on stuff, so I just said, throw it in the box. But it turns out that I really like it. We do a little bit of off-roading here, and just sticks that you hit that fly up, it's just kind of a shin guard. I've certainly, I would say every other ride, have seen something, ping off of this. Instead of hitting my leg, it hits that, and I like that. The other thing too is it kind of gives me a little bit of a visual if I'm going down a really narrow path. I know, like, obviously the handlebars are still wider than this, but it kind of gives me a visual, like, don't try to go into something that's too tight to squeeze through. So I really like this quite a bit. Next on the list, as far as modifications that I've done, are this center rack. And to be perfectly honest, I don't use it, but I'm glad I have it. So this is just something that I think makes the bike have more options. If you want to, say, strap I don't know, like a poncho or something like that on there, you can. It's just another harness point. And they're not that expensive. Again, it's a super easy plug and play kind of deal. So that's kind of working our way back here. Underneath, which you probably can't see, I don't think Jennifer can zoom in on this, probably not. But underneath, I did go ahead, when I did the first oil change, there's a plug in here somewhere. That's okay, you don't have to zoom. And that's the gold plug, and that essentially has a magnet in the oil plug, so that any kind of metal debris and stuff like that will get caught by that. And it's not, I'd say it's not terribly expensive. I think for what it is, it's probably too expensive, but since I was already changing the oil anyway, I might as well do it. Definitely want to make sure you follow the maintenance schedule, especially on the break-in. So like I said, I bought this with 0 miles on it. So I had to do that sort of, they say for the first, 300, just try not to rev it too high, and it's just a break-in like you would do on anything else. A lot of people do change these wheels out. I would say if you're going to, I'm sorry, the tires rather, these tires are actually pretty good in my opinion. They're a good dual sport tire. These are just the stock ones that come. When I have to replace these, I will tell you that I will replace them with it's a Shimco, I think, 244. I had 241s, but I think the 244s are a little nicer as far as just dual sport, because I do a lot on the road and then just a little bit on gravel and stuff like that. So it really just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So talk about a modification that I would not recommend. You'll see this a lot on different videos, but people will cut this off. They don't like the heel shifter. This is a toggle. You can see that it kind of goes back and forth. And of course, it's basically 4 gears in neutral. I use the heel shift all the time. And so I realize, like, if people have big feet or whatever, mine are size 9.5. But man, I use that heel shift almost exclusively, at least for going up in gears, and then just ratchet down going forward. So, people cut that thing off. I'm not a big fan of cutting stuff off the bike. I'll talk about one other modification that I don't recommend doing in just a second. But I would say, if you want something that, if you don't want it, I would say keep your original, buy another OEM one, cut that one off, and at least have the original. Like, I don't like just cutting stuff off of a bike. But hey, personal preference. One of the Kemomoto products that I absolutely love, and I'm really glad that they sent it to me because I don't think I would have tried it out on my own, are these inserts right here. So this is a little, normally this is a rubber pad that's in here, but you can see this Kemomoto insert, and it's got these little studs. I will tell you that it makes, you know, the grip on your feet so much better. So this is one of those ones that I would definitely recommend getting these Kemomoto inserts. A lot of people do ask about what this thing is. This is, and totally probably for another video, but this is to know if you're leaning over too much, this will scrape on the ground. I don't ever plan on getting that close. So, so those are the modifications there. Now moving on to the seat. All right, so I have a very fancy Diabolos seat here. You'll hear a lot of talk about the seat. I will say the stock seat on this bike is terribly uncomfortable. It's really high, and it just kind of hits you in all the wrong places and in all the wrong ways. So a lot of people swap out with these, either the Diabolos, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, or the Corbin. Corbins are really expensive. Unfortunately, I wish I would have bought a Corbin because the reason I bought this was because I got it pretty much at cost, and my buddy lives in Thailand, thanks Tony, and he was coming back home, and so he could just throw it in a bag so I didn't have to pay. You know, it'll cost you anything you buy from, say, Beezdeals and that kind of stuff, which I'll put those links in. It's still some of the best places to buy it because this bike is manufactured in Thailand, so a lot of the accessories are in Thailand. So I didn't have to pay the shipping because that's literally almost the same as the cost of the item. So if you're spending, you know, 150 bucks on a seat, you're going to end up with 300 bucks total, which is a lot. Unfortunately, this thing is a dog. I really wish so the shape is great, but they skimped out on the padding. This is so hard, and I'm just like, why didn't they just make it like, they've already lowered it like 2 to 3 inches. If they could have just put another inch of padding, it would still be lower than the stock seat and comfortable and all that. They didn't. So if you have any better recommendations on a saddle, I do like the tan because, again, it kind of has that whole old military vibe, but just awful. So I don't recommend this Diabolos seat. Check with a Corbin or something like that. Some people put like a gel pad on it, but I don't want anything that you like strap to the seat. I just don't think it looks good, and it's not as stable, and I just don't like it. So I'm still on the quest for a seat. Yeah. The other, I've only used this one a couple of times. This is another modification that I've got, but it's a helmet lock. So it attaches under the seat, and basically this unlocks and you can put your helmet there. I've used it maybe once or twice. It wasn't a terribly difficult modification to make, and yeah, but probably save your money there if you don't really want to do that. But it's neither here nor there. Let's see, moving over here. This is another Kemomoto product. These are the passenger foot pegs, which I definitely recommend. Again, Kemomoto makes a really nice product. These just hook right on, bolt right onto the back of the bike, and it makes it so that a second passenger can have some place to rest their feet, which I think is super important. So along with that, we're going to come on to the other side of the bike, and with that passenger foot peg, two things. So one, here's this little half seat, which I absolutely love, because very rarely do I actually ride a second passenger. Again, this is 125 cc's. I weigh about 180, 185, depending on how many Little Debbies I've eaten the week before. Just, you know, you're not going to ride two people unless you're actually in a different country, and I'm talking mostly to people in the US. This is a single person ride, so it's just for kind of an emergency or a little rare occasion that you'd have a second passenger. So I went with this little half seat here because I wanted to have a box on the back. I'll talk about that later. And so when you do that, this, I did a video about it, really hard to install. It was awful. It took me hours to install because the way you have to get your little crescent wrench in there, you can only do like a quarter turn at a time. And so yeah, once that's on, I'm not taking it off. Back to a modification I don't recommend. Everybody talks about cutting this bar off. They call this the butt buster, this handlebar. But this is what you need to really pull on it to get the center stand in place. And I definitely recommend that you use this center stand instead of the side kickstand, because the bike is not very stable, especially if you do the modifications I did, where you have a gas can, a full gas can on that side, and a box. When you crank that thing over, I wish they would have extended that a little bit more, because it just is just at the tipping point. So you really want to use that center stand, and the way you do that is you use this and you pull it. And so, but again, I just don't think it's smart to go ahead and take a, an angle grinder and cut your bike apart. And then you got to match the paint and all that kind of stuff, but whatever. And I know I'll get a lot of flack from that, on the comments, but that's okay. Just preference, I suppose. But back to the passenger thing. The other thing is it does give the passenger something to grab. If they really need to, they can kind of reach in between their legs and hold there. It's a little bit awkward, but that works. Another Kemomoto addition that I would not have bought on my own, but I'm very glad that they sent it to me, was this heat shield. So I did a video about this because a lot of these products you think are going to be scammy, okay? But we actually did a thermal measuring test where we let the bike run. We took a measure on the exhaust. We took a measure on the stock heat shield, and then a measure with the Kemomoto. And the Kemomoto, with that added, it is quite literally ambient temperature. So really cool. So that means that if somebody's sitting here and they touch their leg on it, they're not going to get burned, which even with the stock heat shield, they would probably get their leg burned a bit, especially if they're wearing shorts or whatever. So this product really does work. Totally looks like a gimmick. I totally thought it was a gimmick. Not a gimmick. Really, really cool. So good job, Kemomoto, on that. So I think that's about it coming around to this side. Swing back once more over here before we get to the box. And this is, this is a gas can. Absolutely love this. I did a video about how to install this gas can so that you can still keep, if you see in there, this is your toolbox and paperwork container for the bike. And normally to install this gas can, you have to remove this because it doesn't fit. So I actually figured out how to do that, how to modify it a little bit so that you keep both. And also make it so that you have 3 points of contact, but that's another video. I think this is probably a little too big. I see a lot that are doing like almost half sizes. They almost look like water bottles, so to speak. That's probably a good way to go. This bike gets 110 miles to the gallon in my actual riding experience. So that's what I'm tracking with it. And yeah, so this is, this will basically get you 150 miles. I think it's like a 1.3. Yep. So this actually holds more than the stock tank, which is kind of cool, but it is heavy. You think about it, that's about 10 pounds or so of gas there. And of course, you're going to want to make sure that you cycle through that from time to time. Use ethanol free, but also, every maybe 5th tank or whatever, pour that out, get some new stuff. Great can. And people will ask, well, why do you have the extra gas tank if you 110? Well, we're rural, so it's one of those things where our nearest gas station is 5 miles away. in one direction, that's not always the direction we go. So a lot of times we'll come back from another ride and we'll only have half a tank or this or that. So it's just good to have it, I think. Anyway, and it's not too expensive, but this just locks on there. Pretty simple. There's tons of videos about that. So that's that. One final thing before I get to the box and what's inside of it. This, again, sent to me from Kemomoto. This is a basically like a tail extension. What you're supposed to do is have it flipped over so that this is up top. But because I had the bag, or the box rather, I didn't want to, or it wouldn't fit really. So this was the only way I could mount it on. Again, very sturdy, but I don't know that I would buy that personally. Yeah, I think I've used it once when I've basically had a full box and I had like, I don't know, I think I went to a farmer's market or something, had like a little bag of onions or something like that. I could sort of stick it there and bungee it. So it does add a little extra, you know, to it. But I don't know that I would buy it if it wasn't part of a sponsorship thing. So, but if you do buy it, if you do want that extension, I will say, again, super high quality, super stiff, great. Finally, and this is probably something that people are going to balk at the price, and you see a lot of people buying like Harbor Freight cases, and that's all good and well. I really like a box that has, you know, it's sealed, has water protection, that kind of thing. This is just, this is my little running errand bike. So I'll sometimes, like I said, go down to a farmer's market, buy some stuff. And so I like to have some space. They make a 65. I think this is the 45. Again, I'll put a link. It's by Woscheider. I couldn't be more happy with it. It is expensive. I wish it was not so expensive, but since I have it, I'm very glad about it. So let me go through then what I keep in here, because I think you should have some stuff in here. I used to work in the operating room, so I got a surgical towel. It's just if you have to do some work and you get greasy. Got a roll of toilet paper because again, you just never know. I do keep my just like a windbreaker in here. You know, if you ride, it gets hot and then it gets cold and all that kind of stuff. So it's just some place to put that. Keep a pair of gloves if it's too cold, like for winter. And then I will go through the tool kit. And again, I'll put a link to all these things, but I'll open this and we'll show you what's inside of here. But let me show you, I've got my tools, and then I also, if you come on in this way, I've got a, this is actually a plug kit, but that's for the Honda Monkey, because I sometimes ride with my wife, so don't worry so much about that. But a tube, okay, and I'll have a link to this one as well. Of course, an extra spare tube. And then this is another thing that's a little expensive, and I thought it was gimmicky until I had to use it, and it's awesome. But this is a little battery operated pump. And again, I'll put a link, but these are a little pricey. They're about 75 bucks, but I'll tell you what, if you have a puncture and you're on the side of the road, oh man, this saved my bacon. And you can plug it in to the charger on the bike if you need to. So even if you kind of forgotten about it and have left it, this little charger really was great. So yeah, like I said, I kind of had buyer's remorse until, like, I think literally 2 weeks after I bought it, I got a puncture, and I was like, woohoo! Very glad I had it. So pretty nice. So happy about that. All right, so let's walk over to the bench, and I'll show you what's in the toolbox. So come on over here. And it's easy if you buy one of these rolls, because it just keeps everything nice and tidy. All right, so what I have in here is just a set of sockets. Okay, so that holds those all in place, the main ones that you're going to use for the bike. I've got of course, a socket wrench. I have a few different Allen keys for the particulars on the bike. I have some adjustable wrenches, which some people would probably fault me for, but you just never know if you end up missing something. These will save your bacon. Then this is a screwdriver, but it is a JIS, so Japanese Industrial Standard Phillips head, which is a little different than we have here in the US. And so this is kind of just, there are screws all over the bike, so you're definitely going to want to have one of those. And then I've got a little, these tire irons, so I've got 3 of these to help you get your wheel off. And again, I had to do that recently. And even with these, it's a pain in the butt, but I could not imagine doing it without those. Then I've got just some zip ties. Just never know if you're going to run into issues where you need to zip tie something. I should probably keep a roll of duct tape. That's probably not a bad idea as well. I think this is a carabiner. Yep, just in case. I've got ratchet straps. Now, why do I have the ratchet straps? Well, if for some reason I have to get a ride home in the back of a pickup truck, although it's difficult, you can back a pickup truck up against a bank, put the tailgate down, roll the bike on, but then you'll need something to strap it down. And so that's what those are for, and then just the bungee. So I'm sure there are better tool rigs than I have, but I've been pretty happy with this one. So. And it packs up nice and small. You just roll it up. It doesn't take up a lot of space, which is what you want, because you don't have a lot of space, even with that Woshider bag or box. Yeah, and that's about it. So that's all the gear, I think. And now let me tell you a little bit about, is this bike for you? Because that's why you're watching this video. You're wanting to determine, do I buy a Honda Trail 125 Hunter Cub or not? And here's my honest assessment. I absolutely love this bike. That's all right. I absolutely love this bike, but I knew what I was getting into. I would call this, don't get mad at me, I'd call this a utility moped. But more than a moped, okay? It's obviously, it's 125 cc's, so you can go in traffic with it. It is street legal, all that good stuff. But the reality is, even for a single guy on there, you know, again, I'm not huge. I'm 5'10", 180, 185. 55 miles an hour is this thing full throttle. I mean, it's not liking it, okay? So I always tell people, look, this is the kind of bike that you get to ride on back roads, basically 45 mile an hour speed limits or less. It's that kind of thing. If you're in a city where you're doing a lot of commuting, great bike for that. If you are super rural, great bike for that. Awesome on trails. I will say these little 125s will go anywhere. I mean, they will go places where 650s won't go. You know, they just you know, just right through. Goes through water, all that kind of stuff. This does have a snorkel on it. But the realistic uses, if you are an American in suburbia where you've got 55 mile an hour speed limits, this is not your bike. Just don't even fool yourself for that. And I think that's a lot of the reason why you'll see a lot of these for sale with less than 1,000 miles on them, because people buy them because they're nostalgic. Let's face it, these look cool, okay? That's what sold me on them. But these are expensive for what they are. This bike out the door before all the modifications was $5,000. $5,000. I think even new or even used now, they're still over $4,000. I can use that same money and I can buy a really nice used like BMW F650 GS. Of course, a lot of people talk about the classic TW200, you know, the T-Dub. Great bike also. I just don't, the look on this is so much cooler, you know, and I like that you can just point and shoot, and it's great. So if that's what you're going for, yeah, it's super fun. I've never not enjoyed a ride on this bike. But I'll tell you, if I think I'm going to be passed by any cars within 5 minutes of each other, I don't ride those roads. It's just not appropriate for this kind of bike. This is back road only kind of thing. So, and if you know that, man, you can have this bike for the rest of your life. I know these can go easily up to 100,000 miles if you take good care of them, and I certainly plan on doing that. I have never had more fun at 35 miles an hour than on this thing. I can tell you that. But um, beyond that, like I said, you do not want to go on 55-mile-an-hour roads if you can avoid it. Or if you do, it's just for a little bit to get to the next one. So that's the realistic assessment of it. Again, it's not a moped, um, but it's definitely not going to be going on the highway or anything like that. So um, just kind of keep that in mind. You can certainly get more bang for your buck if you're looking to ride on higher speed roads. But if not, if you want to do a little bit of everything and just really enjoy the nostalgia of riding, like I said, you have more fun at 35 miles an hour than with any other thing I think I know of. So I guess that's about it. Certainly feel free to comment below. Again, I will put a link to all of these products in the description. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned to see what else is brewing here at Table Rock Tea Company.